Good evening, everyone. The Mad Mix Not Cheap Whiskey Review number 6, I believe this is. On the bed tonight, we have a very famous whiskey, obviously, Eagle Rare, a Buffalo Trace product. Once upon a time, it used to be a single barrel. From what I understand, the story is that they don't run the Eagle Rare on the single barrel line anymore. So they couldn't really call it Eagle, a single barrel product because there might still be some whiskey from a previous barrel in the barreling line. So if they get mixed together at all, technically it becomes not a single barrel. Now, also from what I understand, Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace are the same mash bill. They're the same exact whiskey made from the same exact raw dog. The only difference is, obviously, Eagle Rare is minimum age 10 years. Buffalo Trace is around 7, I believe. Buffalo Trace is not age stated. Eagle Rare does get the 10-year age statement. I believe that Eagle Rare is stored higher in the rick house where it tends to get warmer, and that contributes a little bit to its flavor profile. Very famous whiskey, allocated just like all of Buffalo Trace's allocated products. My store got a pretty good haul in. They only got one Eagle Rare, and luckily I asked about, what came in, and they're like, oh, we did get an Eagle Rare. I was like, I'll take it. And I also took a Blanton's. So the Blanton's will be coming up at some point. But tonight, we have the Eagle Rare. You can see it's got a beautiful color. I mean, that's just fantastic. Just fantastic. So, with that being said, let's dive the nose. Let's get this snout in the glass. Oh, yeah, that's got quintessential bourbon nose. Yeah. You get that vanilla, you get that brown sugar. Maybe even that hint of cinnamon that I always like to talk about. Or at least to me, comes off as cinnamon. It's very smooth, super approachable. All the legs on it are almost obscene. I don't know if you can see it, but there's just a ring at the top of the glass, and it don't really, it's taking a while for it to want to drip back down. So it's got some oomph to it. It's sticky icky. Just a great nose. Much better than Buffalo Trace. You know what I mean? Eagle Rare, with the 3 extra years and maybe where they store it in the rick house, it definitely makes a difference. This is a much, much darker, much more aromatic whiskey than Buffalo Trace, their standard releases. Although Buffalo Trace is a good, approachable, drinkable whiskey. I'm not making fun of it. I've done a review on it in the cheap whiskey series because I got it for around $30. Yeah, I got a great nose. All right, without much further ado, down the hatch it goes. Yeah, that's a very good whiskey. No doubt about it. It's got to be everything you would want a bourbon to be. I'm not the hugest fan of bourbon. I know I say this over and over in my videos. I'm a Scotch and Irish whiskey fan to the core. But I do like a good bourbon. And obviously, when I can find an allocated product, I paid $44 for this bottle. So I don't know what it goes for in my state is not a state run, liquor stores. They're all independently owned. They have the right to charge whatever they want for their liquor. I've seen bottles of Eagle Rare in some stores going for $100. Now that would be ridiculous to pay that much for Eagle Rare. Eagle Rare is good. It's not $100 whiskey. This was $44 at my local liquor store. That's a good price. If you can get it for $44, it's a very good whiskey. Once again, on the nose, yeah, just a quintessential bourbon. You get a little bit of the oak. Even for as dark as it is, it's not, I wouldn't say it's over oaked, but it is definitely an oak presence on it. There's no doubt about that. But it's got that brown sugar honey. I don't know. I always call it cinnamony, a cinnamony smell. Even though I'm pretty sure cinnamon doesn't have much of a smell, it just has a taste. But yeah, it's a very good nose. Very approachable, very smooth. Not a lot of ethanol on it. which you wouldn't expect. Once, if it spends 10 years in a barrel, it's had more than enough time to mellow out. Yeah, it's got a very good smell. Let's get one more sip. Yes, yes, that's very drinkable. This is a very good bourbon. Very good. And coming from someone who's not a big bourbon fan, that means a lot. You know what I mean? I am not a bourbon connoisseur. My brother is a bourbon connoisseur. He loves all manner of bourbon. I am more of a Scotch and Irish whiskey guy. But this is a very solid bourbon. And if you can get it for $44, it's probably the best, or one of the best. I won't say the best. It's probably one of the best $44 bourbons you can possibly buy. I'm sure there are others, and if anyone has anything to say, please leave it in the comments. If you've got a good Eagle Rare alternative that maybe is a little cheaper in the same price range for people who can't find them, obviously Buffalo Trace's allocated products are not easy to find everywhere all the time. You know what I mean? I've had a few bottles of Eagle Rare. I'd probably say I've had like 4 or 5 in my life. Not that I go looking for it, but if I see it and I see it for a reasonable price, like $44, I just pick it up because it's a good bourbon to have around. You can drink this with your friends, your family, someone who appreciates liquor. If they see Eagle Rare, they're like, yeah, give me a pour of that. You know what I mean? And they know it's a pour that they can drink and enjoy. They know that it's a good whiskey. They know that it's hard to find for most people. You know what I mean? So with that being said, Mad Mix Not Cheap Whiskey Review, number 6, I believe it is. If I got the number wrong, I apologize, but I'm not going to re-record this video. So, Eagle Rare 10-year. I'm going to give it an 8.9. I really think that for the price that I paid for it, I don't know what you're going to pay for it where you live. Might be very different. If this was much more expensive than $44, well, the score would start coming down. You know what I mean? But for $44 and the taste and, flavor and nose profile of this whiskey, it's got to get an 8.9. This is probably bordering on one of the better $44 bottles of bourbon that you can get. I've drank a lot of bourbon. I haven't liked a lot of bourbon, that's for sure. But there are some that I like. There are a lot of good bourbons. I'm not fronting on, when bourbon is done well, it's a very good whiskey. Just kind of like Scotch and Irish. When Scotch and Irish are done poorly, they are not very good whiskeys, you know what I mean? But when they're done well, they become world-class whiskeys. Eagle Rare is a world-class whiskey, especially in its price range, and especially the bang you get for the buck, the flavor profile, the smoothness. It is a quintessential bourbon, and it deserves to be given its credit. So I give Eagle Rare an 8.9 based on flavor and price. I think it's the best bang for the buck in that price range for, 10-year age-stated whiskey. Not all bourbons age-state their bourbons. It's very, you got to start getting up there. I've noticed a lot of 10 and 12 and 15-year bourbons have been coming out lately, whether it's, I forget who, Wild Turkey's Russell's Reserve has been putting out a lot of age-stated stuff. There are some other brands that are putting out age-stated whiskey. Well, Eagle Rare, which at one time used to be single barrel, they're still age-stating it at 10 years, so you can't go wrong with that. Not a lot of bourbons. I'm not even sure my Blanton's has an age statement on it. I'll have to check that out later. I could be wrong. But Eagle Rare, very solid bourbon. Coming from a guy who's not even a big bourbon fan, I have to admit, this is a fucking extremely solid bourbon for its price. So, if you see it, get it. You probably don't need me to tell you that. You know what I mean? If you're drinking bourbon, if you're looking into reviews of bourbon, you know what Eagle Rare is. You know how it's considered a great whiskey for its price range. And coming up soon, we'll have the Blanton's review. So, my people, love yourself, love your family, love your friends, and love not cheap whiskey. Take care of yourselves.